let's get into the Criterium du Dauphiné, the warm-up race for the Tour de France.
The Dauphiné is always the preview for the Tour de France, but it feels like this year more than ever, this is the first World Tour. Well, I'll take that back. This is the second World Tour stage race that will be happening. This is the first World Tour stage race that FloBikes will be broadcasting. We'll get into some of the happenings at the Tour of Poland, which will lead into Lombardia as well as the Dauphiné. But the thing about this year's race is it has been shortened to 5 stages, but it just seems like they've taken all of the kilometers, all of the meters of climbing that they would have done over this normally week-long stage race and packed them into 5 days. 5 stages, 5 summit finishes, and no like flat run into a long summit finish. We start off with stage 1, 221 kilometers, 7 categorized climbs, finishes on a 4 kilometer, roughly 5% ascent. Stage 2 finishes on the Col de Portet. Stage 3 has the above category Col de la Madeleine, also finishes on a 15 kilometer climb. Stage 4, you would think that this is the Queen stage, 6 categorized climbs, the above category Monte de Bisson, and then the finish on the category 1 Megève climb. But then we have stage 5, 8 categorized climbs, includes the Col de la Colombière, again finishes on the Megève. This is only a 100-mile roughly race, just under 100 miles, stage 5, almost 15,000 feet of climbing. This is just going to be a really stupid race. I almost think it's too hard 2 weeks out from the Tour de France. But what's interesting is that a lot of racers are using the Mont Ventoux Challenge, which we broadcast last Thursday, along with the Tour de l'Ain, as a big block going into the Dauphiné ahead of the Tour de France. And as you're about to talk about, Michael, the lineup of riders here is very similar, if not exactly what we will be seeing in about 3 weeks' time at the Tour.
Right. We are going to see a lot of the riders who just came off the Tour de l'Ain. We have Primoz Roglic, who beat all of Ineos, answering questions about this Jumbo-Visma versus Team Ineos battle of the super teams coming to the Tour de France. Tadej Pogacar, Sergio Higuita, Thibaut Pinot. Criterium du Dauphiné, it is a monster of a bike race this year. Really hard. Every single stage is kind of bonkers in terms of climbing. And Ian, you said it's almost too hard to be 2 weeks out from the Tour de France. And I agree. This reminds me kind of the Tour of the Alps leading into the Giro d'Italia, where you see racers flying for this preparatory race for the Giro, and then they totally blow it. They use all their legs in the Tour of the Alps, and they're nowhere on the GC at the Giro d'Italia. I don't really think it's going to be a good idea to win the Criterium du Dauphiné this year, because you're just going to have to be riding too darn well. I don't think that you're going to be able to sustain that, 4 or 5 weeks later going into Paris after the Tour.
Yeah, the one team that we didn't mention, of course, is Team Ineos, which is bringing a similar lineup to what they had at the Tour de l'Ain. Egan Bernal, Geraint Thomas, and Chris Froome matched up against Primoz Roglic, Tom Dumoulin, and Steven Kruijswijk. At the Tour de l'Ain, Jumbo-Visma also had George Bennett. 11 riders, there are 11 GC, or excuse me, there are 4 GC riders, all finishing in the top 11. Ineos riding very specifically in support of Egan Bernal. Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas really not up in the mix at all. I think this is Ineos really sort of holding their cards to their chest a little bit. They're happy to let Jumbo-Visma go out and dominate the Tour de l'Ain. They're happy. I think they would be jubilant to see Jumbo-Visma go out and dominate this ridiculously hard Criterium du Dauphiné. And I guarantee you we will see a very on-form Chris Froome and a very on-form Geraint Thomas alongside Egan Bernal at the Tour de France.
I completely agree. You can read into it what you will with Team Ineos and Chris Froome. not having the performances of their lifetime as we get back to racing, but they're too methodical. They're too dialed. They have the experience. Jumbo-Visma, they're the new kids on the block. They have not won the Tour de France. They desperately want to. Team Ineos, they have the experience. They know what they're doing. I will not put myself out there and say that Jumbo-Visma is going to be able to topple them this year. But we'll see. Criterium du Dauphine is going to continue to shed more light on this situation.